Golden State, the way they're built now, are obviously already indescribably frightening. Literally indescribable, as in this very intro, after making video after video on this team, I struggled to describe this squad with a summary that holds enough weight to truly do them justice. I'm left looking as indecisive as I do when the waiter comes around for my order. I don't even think frightening tells the whole story. But much like any other great fine dining experience, it doesn't matter what I order, long as it's the master chef that serves it up in the kitchen. The Warriors have the master chef of the league himself, and as long as he's the one stirring up the pot, it won't matter what ingredients he throws in. But this franchise has given their chef more extravagant ingredients than he could ever possibly need, and even the garnish to top it off with. And the result is a recipe for domination. So what would happen if a chemical X was added to the pot? Would it be utter destruction of the league, or of Golden State themselves with an overload of overwhelming flavors?
Back out to Allen. Play for three. Good!
Now this is a video I've been meaning to put together for a while now, and though some time has passed since the rumor, I'ma still use Paul George as my example. And that rumor that Golden State has been prepping to go after him is really not as crazy as you might think. Matter of fact, this is something that crossed my mind long before the George for Clay trade was ever even offered. But if y'all remember, a few weeks down the line when he was traded, George still let out a quote, and I mean he let out a quote with the quickness, like immediately after joining the OKC Thunder. He still wasn't shy to express interest in playing for the Golden State Warriors. He talked about what that would have been like if the trade had gone through. And even if he'd stayed silent, I still believe the Warriors would be, and have been, composing a plan to make a semi-strong push for PG next offseason, or even mid-season at the trade deadline if he becomes available, which, side note, seems a much less likely scenario now that Melo's joined the squad and Westbrook got extended. But the point is, ever since this management group has taken office, there's been no sleeping on any one superstar that could even be a halfway decent fit. Whatever opportunity that presented itself, disregarding risk, disregarding how experimental the move may be, management did their due diligence from start to finish. They handled the entire process from getting their foot in the door early on to emerging as a real possible landing spot, whether the odds were with them or completely stacked against them. Even if, after much deliberation, it was decided that the team was better off going in a separate direction, they could still sleep easy knowing that they didn't leave a single stone unturned. Even guys who were just borderline stars like DeAndre Jordan and Dwight Howard, Lacob and the management group would evaluate their compatibility with the team far in advance, and when the time came to it, the recruitment process would begin. After shooting and missing for Dwight, and thank the Lord that they did, Golden State somehow ended up with Andre Iguodala instead. And a lot of the Warriors' success has been derived directly from him. Without Andre, the step that the team took the season after, becoming a serious, versatile threat from all areas of the floor, inside-out scoring, perimeter D, the switching system, and the transition game. He elevated their game from so many different corners. And Clay, Draymond, Harrison Barnes, and a lot of these younger dudes shadowed him in practice, and it helped them have breakout seasons in their own respective ways, while Andre was there to cover up their lapses when the youth still showed through. There's a strong argument that they never could have been the team they are today had they not been able to snag Andre when it seemed impossible. Of course, they'd still be great, but as dominant as they became, topping MJ's regular season record, jumping out miles ahead of the rest of the league, acquiring KD, and then quickly certifying themselves as one of the most talented basketball teams ever, and probably the most synergetic team in history. I don't believe half that could have happened without this move. But how they got their hands on Andre, that's a whole different story. He didn't fall into their laps like most free agent acquisitions. Most of the time, all it takes is a mutual desire between an organization and a player, but not with Andre. Their cap situation had their hands tied, but Andre still approached the team with probably the most genuine interest a player has ever shown in joining a franchise that I've ever seen in this league. Keep in mind, this was before Golden State was even a top 5 team out west, but he saw the vision, and without these traits I described earlier, not leaving a single stone unturned, Bob Myers and his camp never would have been able to orchestrate this all out. Now, after all this, has the ownership group and the management become jaded with all this success? They must be a little bit, but have they forgotten what it took to get here? Have they sat back to just enjoy the thriving system that they created? Hell no. They're just the same as they've always been, and they understand that eras pass. All dynasties fall eventually. But they're going to prolong this one as much as possible. They're going to squeeze out every drop of juice this team has in them. Their goal wasn't to be dominant for 3 years or even 5. Their goal is to be known as a consistently great franchise like the Los Angeles Lakers and San Antonio Spurs. A team that's almost always been a title contender year after year, always finding and acquiring talent somehow, as the Warriors have continued to do without cap, without draft picks, still finding a way to add great young talent through the draft. I don't know if y'all caught that last preseason matchup. It was hard to catch, being broadcasted at 4 a.m. Pacific time and all, but if you missed it, I highly recommend you check out the highlights. Near the end of the game, Jordan Bell came in and simply went off. I mean, steal after steal, making all the right decisions. It's incredible the Warriors could get their hands on such system-suitable, high IQ players like him and P-Mac without a draft pick, without expending any assets. And clearly the second round is their best bet at this point. Cheap rookie contracts that can produce high above their pay grade. But don't think for a second that they've limited themselves to just that. These youngins are great as complementary pieces to the current squad, but not so much for longevity past it. Any star that could be acclimated to the system, they'll pursue to extend this dynasty out. That's where Paul George comes in. Basically, their best option in 2018 free agency, and I believe 100% they'll go after him if he explores options outside of OKC. They'll meet with him and get a grip on how well he'd accept a role behind so much star power. Now that being said, I don't believe it'll come into fruition, not because of cap. If they dropped Iguodala and S-Dot, they could take on PG-13. And definitely not due to opposing teams wanting to make Golden State's life difficult. If PG wants out either way, a sign-and-trade package centered around Andre Iguodala would probably be their best bet. They're not going to pass that up just to hurt GSW. We saw this with KD. People expected teams to shun Golden State and prevent them from freeing up cap. But nah, there's always going to be an organization out there to take on free assets for the betterment of their team, like Dallas did there with Bogut. Franchises will work to their own benefit before they work to another team's demise. But the reason I can't see this going down is PG's attitude. I don't believe he'd ever accept playing alongside Klay as opposed to in place of him. For one, he holds himself to a higher regard than Klay, and that kind of confidence isn't a problem in itself. Matter of fact, I think it's a plus. But I can't imagine PG playing as a fourth option, which is what he'd be in GSW. From what I've gathered over the years on his persona and his gameplay, he's not a selfish player, but he is one that likes to have the ball in his hands a good amount. And he's hungry for recognition, and he wants to be known as the primary or secondary leader on a team. Before KD joined Golden State, he had the MVP, the scoring titles, the finals appearance under his belt. He'd already certified his legacy. If he'd retired right then and there, he'd have gone down in history as one of the greatest scorers of all time. There'd be some debate, but inarguably he'd be top 3, top 5. PG, if he did the same, then you saw the hate KD received. That'd be nothing in contrast. It'd look like the cop-out of all cop-outs. He'd lose all respect. And for that reason, I don't believe any star in their right mind would link up with Golden State unless one of KD, Steph, Draymond, or Klay were gone. And it's highly unlikely that any of them would walk out on this dynasty for the next 4 to 5 seasons at least. So in the meantime, who could Golden State realistically add? To me, it'd be another fringe star, sort of past his prime, but was once a star in this league, a la Andre Iguodala. A guy that's already proven himself, whose legacy is cemented, that's ready to cap off the final years of his career with a bang, and while doing so, have a shitload more fun than they'd ever had the opportunity to throughout the rest of their career. all the while with enough rest to keep their aging legs in check. So that's my estimate, but let me know how you feel. And I got 3 viewer questions for you. 1, do you think Golden State will at least meet with and pursue PG-13 next offseason? 2, do you believe PG will bounce after 1 year with OKC or stick around for more? And last but not least, which fringe star could you see Golden State adding within the next couple of seasons? Let the debate begin. Remember to hit the bell for post notifications, like if you enjoyed, share it to your friends if you think they would, and subscribe if you're new and you fuck with the content. That's all for now. Clay Allen, stay ballin', and I'm signing off. Peace.